I want to know how much longer the owner's going to watch this crap. Because the fans have had it. We deserve better. You're just worried more about your stadium than you are your football team. That's the perception, Jimmy. Teams are hiring. The Falcons got their coach. The Titans hired. They're hiring all these coaches. What is taking so long? The Browns have been working on this for 3 weeks. What's going on? Is Andrew really running this, or is Jimmy using Andrew to do what he wants to do, the owner? That's a legitimate question. We've seen the meddling in the past. Is Andrew really doing this, or the Haslams have their favorites? People are keep going, who do you want? Who do you like? Who do you want? I don't know. Folks, I don't know. I just know this. I don't like the process already. I don't. I don't. Do you have to keep Jim Schwartz? Do you not have to keep Jim Schwartz? Is he really in play for head coach, or is this just they want him around as a DC? Is he really that valuable? I don't.
The Cleveland Browns are imploding again. While teams across the NFL are making decisive moves, hiring championship-caliber coaches, and building for the future, the Browns are doing what they do best: overthinking, meddling, and setting themselves up for another spectacular failure. And Tony Rizzo, he's had enough.
9 years you can't get to the Super Bowl. You got a problem with that?
I don't.
I don't either.
This isn't just about finding any coach. This is about finding the right coach who can develop a franchise quarterback and finally end Cleveland's decades of misery. And right now, the Browns are botching it spectacularly. Let's set the scene. 10 NFL teams needed head coaches this offseason. 10! It's a feeding frenzy out there, with franchises scrambling to find the next Ben Johnson, the next Mike Vrabel, the next Curt Cignetti, coaches who can turn organizations around overnight. And what are the Browns doing? 3 weeks into their search, they're still conducting interviews while other teams are already announcing hires and building their staff. Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins, Robert Saleh to the Titans, Jim Harbaugh to the Giants. Kevin Stefanski, yes, the guy Cleveland just fired, already snatched up by the Falcons. The coaching dominoes are falling fast. And Cleveland, they're still in the corner, paralyzed by indecision and internal politics.
You have the worst offense in the league. Your GM screwed this quarterback thing up like I've never seen in my life. I've never seen anything like it. Kids that play Madden could have done a better job.
Rizzo didn't mince words about where the Browns rank among teams still searching for a head coach. When you've got the Bills, Steelers, Cardinals, Raiders, Ravens, and Browns all looking, Cleveland isn't exactly the belle of the ball. The Cardinals might be the only situation worse, and even that's debatable because at least Arizona doesn't have the baggage of being a coach-killing organization. Here's where Rizzo really lit the fuse. He asked the question every Browns fan is thinking but afraid to say out loud. Is Andrew Berry actually running this coaching search, or is Jimmy Haslam pulling the strings behind the scenes?
Is Andrew really doing this, or the Haslams have their favorites? But Chris, at one point last week, I text Chops and I go, Myles Garrett's running the coaching search. Because he wants Jim Schwartz.
Right.
That's not hyperbole. That's not hot take radio. That's legitimate concern based on years of Haslam's documented meddling. This is the same owner who cycled through coach after coach, creating an organizational culture so toxic that quality candidates think twice before taking calls from Berea. The same owner whose collaborative approach has been code for, I'm going to interfere with football decisions because I write the checks. And now, with the Browns potentially in position to draft a franchise-altering quarterback, Haslam's fingerprints are all over a search that should be clean, decisive, and future-focused. The process is already compromised. Reports suggest the Browns want Jim Schwartz retained as defensive coordinator, or they're at least heavily considering him for the head coaching position itself. That's not how you attract top-tier offensive minds who can develop a young quarterback. Let's talk about Jim Schwartz for a second, because this perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with Cleveland's approach. Schwartz is a good defensive coordinator. Nobody's disputing that. His defense performed admirably despite being on the field constantly because the Browns' offense was anemic. But here's the problem. Schwartz's defense went 5-12 this season. 5 wins and 12 losses. You don't build championship organizations by clinging to coordinators from losing seasons. You don't attract elite head coaching candidates by telling them who they have to keep on staff before they even get the job.
Stefanski how it is to coach with parameters.
Boom, there it is. Stefanski dealt with organizational restrictions and predetermined structures. How'd that work out? 2 playoff appearances in 5 years with rosters that should have competed for championships. Now he's Atlanta's problem. The Browns are repeating the same mistakes, creating the same restrictive environment that's poisoned multiple coaching regimes. And Rizzo sees it clear as day. If Myles Garrett wants Schwartz, fine. Garrett's the franchise player and his voice matters, but you don't let player preferences dictate your head coaching hire. You find the best coach available, give them full autonomy to build their staff, and let them cook. This might be Rizzo's most important point, and it's getting lost in all the Schwartz speculation.
I need offense. Yes, I know all the teams, 3 of the 4 teams left are defense and defensive coaches, I get it. But you still have to have an offense. Don't overlook that. And don't poo-poo that. You need to be able to have a team that could score points anytime they touch the ball. Not 12 play drives. You got to be explosive.
Exactly. Look at what's winning in the NFL right now. The teams still playing in late January aren't grinding out 12-play clock-controlled drives. They're explosive, they're dynamic, they're putting up points in bunches. The Browns finished 30th in points per game this season. 30th. You can have the best defense in the league, which Cleveland didn't, and it won't matter if you can't score. Yet the coaching search seems focused on defensive continuity rather than offensive innovation. That's backwards. That's organizational malpractice when you're potentially about to invest a top 5 pick in a quarterback. Whether it's Shedeur Sanders, or whoever falls to Cleveland in the draft, that young quarterback needs an offensive-minded head coach, or at minimum, a coach who prioritizes offensive infrastructure. They need Kyle Shanahan's creativity, Sean McVay's innovation, Ben Johnson's aggression. What are they getting instead? Potentially another defensive-minded coach with predetermined coordinators and organizational restrictions. Todd Monken is getting a second interview. Monken, who just spent 2 years as Cleveland's offensive coordinator, watching Deshaun Watson implode? Is he the answer? Rizzo doesn't sound convinced, and neither should Browns fans. Here's what makes this entire situation so infuriating. The blueprint is right there. Teams are doing it successfully across the league. Look at what Curt Cignetti just did at Indiana. Took over a program, installed his system, brought his guys, and won a national championship in his first year. No compromises, no committee decisions, no predetermined assistants. Mike McDonald went to Seattle and completely transformed the Seahawks in 1 season. Dan Campbell turned Detroit from laughingstock to legitimate contender by getting full organizational buy-in and autonomy. These turnarounds happen when ownership gets out of the way and lets football people make football decisions. They happen when coaches have the freedom to build their vision without interference. The Browns? They're doing the exact opposite. 3 weeks of interviews, multiple rounds with the same candidates, whispers about organizational preferences and player input. It's death by committee all over again.
Teams are hiring. The Falcons got their coach. The Titans hired. They're hiring all these coaches. What is taking so long? The Browns have been working on this for 3 weeks. What's going on?
What's going on is what always goes on in Cleveland. Organizational dysfunction masquerading as thoroughness. Rizzo also touched on something fascinating that's playing out across the league right now. Coaches are getting fired for bad rosters, not bad coaching. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season in Pittsburgh despite cycling through Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields at quarterback. Sean McDermott made the playoffs consistently in Buffalo despite limited weapons around Josh Allen.
These coaches are being scapegoated for general manager failures, and now those same GMs, or in Cleveland's case, the same ownership structure, are conducting coaching searches. The Browns have roster issues. Deshaun Watson is an albatross contract. The offensive line needs work. The receiver room is inconsistent, but ownership isn't taking accountability for those roster construction failures. They're just cycling through coaches and hoping someone can work magic with flawed pieces. It's insanity. It's the definition of insanity, actually, doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. Let's bring this full circle to why this matters so much right now. The Browns are likely picking in the top 5 of the 2026 NFL Draft. They have a chance to reset the quarterback position, truly reset it, not just throwing more money at broken pieces. Shedeur Sanders might be there. Other elite quarterback prospects will be available. This is Cleveland's chance to start fresh with a young, talented signal caller and build properly from the ground up. But you cannot develop a franchise quarterback with the right coaching infrastructure. You can't do it with organizational chaos, predetermined coordinators, and owner meddling. You just can't. Look at what happened to Baker Mayfield in Cleveland versus what he's doing in Tampa Bay with proper coaching and stability. Look at Sam Darnold finally thriving in Minnesota after years of dysfunction with the Jets. Quarterbacks need stability. They need offensive-minded leadership. They need organizations that prioritize their development above all else. Is Cleveland providing that? Based on this coaching search, absolutely not. What makes this even more maddening is the lack of urgency. While the Browns deliberate and conduct third and fourth interviews, other teams are building staffs, installing systems, and preparing for the draft. The Falcons already have Stefanski implementing his offense. The Dolphins have Halfley building his defense. These teams are weeks ahead of Cleveland in their preparation, and in a league where margins are razor thin, where every week of offseason work matters, the Browns are falling behind before the race even starts. If they draft a quarterback in April, that rookie will arrive to an organization still figuring out its identity, still building its coaching staff, still navigating internal politics. That's not how you set up a young quarterback for success. What makes Rizzo's commentary so powerful is his genuine frustration mixed with forced optimism. He's a Cleveland guy through and through. He wants this to work. He's trying to stay positive.
I'm not going to bury Andrew Berry and Jimmy before they pick the next head coach. I think Jimmy has a lot more to do with this, folks, than y'all think. I do.
But you can hear it in his voice. He doesn't believe it. He's seen this movie before. He knows how it ends. Cleveland fans deserve better. They deserve an organization that makes bold, decisive moves. They deserve ownership that trusts its football people and stays out of the way. They deserve a coaching search that prioritizes finding the best candidate, not the most politically palatable one. Instead, they're getting the same old Browns, overthinking, overcomplicating, and inevitably under-delivering. The Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads. They can either learn from their mistakes and conduct a coaching search based on football merit, offensive innovation, and quarterback development, or they can continue down the same path of organizational dysfunction that's defined this franchise for 2 decades. Right now, all signs point to the latter. The Schwartz situation, the prolonged search, the lack of offensive focus, the Haslam meddling, it's all adding up to another Browns disaster in the making. And when that top 5 pick rolls around in April, when Shedeur Sanders or another franchise quarterback is on the board, Cleveland better hope they've built the right infrastructure to develop him, because based on this coaching search, that's far from guaranteed. Tony Rizzo sees it, Cleveland fans see it, the entire NFL sees it. The question is, do the Browns see it? Or are they too busy looking in the mirror, seeing what they want to see, and ignoring the organizational dysfunction staring back at them? 3 weeks in, and we still don't have answers. Just more questions, more doubt, and more evidence that some franchises never learn. The coaching carousel keeps spinning, the Browns keep stumbling, and Cleveland fans keep suffering. Same as it ever was.